The 14th Amendment contains this fairly obscure clause. It's called the Insurrection Clause. And what that clause says is that anyone who's taken an oath of office to support the Constitution and then later engages in insurrection or rebellion is disqualified from holding future federal offices. And so what the argument here is that Trump's behavior around the 2020 election, what he did on January 6th, 2021 to stoke violence at the Capitol, and what he did to subvert the election results counts as an insurrection. And because he took an oath of office as president to defend the Constitution, he is automatically disqualified from holding any federal office again, including president. There are some issues with that argument. There's a debate about whether the January 6th attack on the Capitol counts as an insurrection. Some people say it was bad, it was a riot, it was violent, but does it rise to the level of insurrection or rebellion within the meaning of the Constitution? That's not quite clear. No court has ruled that the 14th Amendment does disqualify Trump from running for office. It's very possible that the question could come up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court may have the final word. Most legal observers think it's pretty unlikely that either lower courts or the Supreme Court would adopt this argument and disqualify Trump under the 14th Amendment, because there are a lot of technical and substantive problems and a lot of unresolved questions that simply have just never been clarified before. The concern is that it will be perceived as undemocratic. And that even if it is true that the 14th Amendment's insurrection clause does apply to Trump, the American people should be the final arbiters of whether they want to re-elect Trump in 2024. There are a number of cases that have been brought in various states. Some are more serious than others, and some are farther along than others. There's a Colorado case that has already been argued at the Colorado Supreme Court, cases in Michigan, in Minnesota. There's a recently filed case in Oregon, but they could all begin moving swiftly, particularly if any court actually rules in favor of these challengers and declares Trump ineligible. Would immediately set off emergency appeals and potentially trigger a rush to the US Supreme Court. The fact that there is this fairly obscure provision of the 14th Amendment that was adopted in the wake of the Civil War and was originally intended to prevent former leaders of the Confederacy from holding federal office. And then for over 100 years, that provision of the 14th Amendment was essentially never invoked. And the fact that it's now being reinvigorated in the context of Donald Trump over what he did around the 2020 election and what he did on January 6th, I think it really hammers home how difficult it is to apply words that were written in the 19th century in the Constitution for one purpose and take them and then apply them, in the modern era to modern candidates who engaged in acts that no one could possibly have foreseen.